2.
4, 3. What comes after 3?
I lost it.
That's okay. That's all right. We can't take this seriously at all. No, we got to take the right things seriously. Anyway.
Right thing, seriously.
All right, we're back. Freedom Forum 2 on this 13th day of the 5th month, year of our Lord Jesus the Christ, 2015. Heavenly Father, give us the strength, the wisdom, the courage, and the patience to do your will in all things. And we ask that you would confuse or convert our enemies. In Jesus the Christ's name we pray. Amen. Meeting tomorrow night, Robichaux Center, Acadiana Patriots. And then next week will be the next Elise's meeting of the Freedom Forum group. It'll be next Thursday, a week from tomorrow. You want to tell them what's coming tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to clean up a little bit of this.
Yeah, just give them
They messed me up and went and did some good things.
Yeah.
Actually, now is the time to get off the couch and get involved. Seriously. The legislative session is in session and lots of activity. We'll give updates on pertinent education bills and others because I'll have more information tomorrow night. We keep hearing rumors about Jade Helm training. Tom Parker will fill us in on what we know and what we don't know. How do you fill somebody in on what you don't know?
Wait for it. I'm good at that.
Also, we'll have updates from people who attended the Erase Common Core rally at the Capitol. That's pretty good. I'm going to do a presentation on Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, and I think it's real important that people somewhat understand that because that is pretty much what they use to do what they do. We're going to share several new videos pertaining to the present issues. I'm not going to read all that. I think what I talked about previous hour, the red shirts made their presence known at that committee meeting, and I do think that had a tremendous effect on what happened yesterday.
I do too.
Your presence is needed at this meeting to help fight the fight. Just because some good things happened today don't mean it's over.
No, it's not over.
That's at the Robichaux Recreation Center across the street from the Cox building on 1919 Eras Landry Road.
And before
or go to acadianapatriots.com and get the full info.
There you go. Okay, before I get into Jade Helm a little bit, we got a video now. Our assistant is here to do the technical advice that we need. Remember, we're computer Neanderthals around here. This is an interesting video of a Muslim something or other who
Imam.
Listen carefully to what he says. They kind of talk over one another on Sean Hannity. Sean is bad about that.
He talks over her.
Well, everybody talks sometimes, but the gist of this is pay close attention, folks. This is why we're telling you the kind of stuff we're telling you.
The religion of peace.
Yeah. Can you roll it?
Over a cartoon, Anjum. All these incidents over a cartoon. Do you support this death threat against Pam Geller because she ran a free speech contest drawing cartoons of your prophet?
Let's be absolutely clear. We're not talking about Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. You're talking about people who deliberately had a competition to insult the messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
To make cartoons.
If you saw the cartoons
so
that
you
were
support
drawn,
the death.
If you saw the cartoons, just bear with me, Sean. If you saw the cartoons that Charlie Hebdo drew, you would understand the anger. And now this woman wants to draw cartoons or have people draw cartoons to insult the Prophet, knowing full well that this carries the death penalty in Islam. So definitely, she's asking people to attack.
You support the death penalty for Pam Geller,
security on the day.
who's not Muslim. You support the death penalty because she had a cartoon contest. Is that how frail you are in your faith? That you feel so insecure that you cannot.
It's not about me. It's about the divine law.
Your prophet cannot withstand a cartoon being drawn about him.
That will carry capital punishment, Sean.
So
it's
you
not
want
about my personal views.
You support the death threat. You want to kill her.
And the Sunnah of the Prophet.
You want her to die.
You know what? She should be put before a Sharia court and tried. And if found guilty, of course she will face capital punishment.
She's not a Muslim, Anjum. She's
It
not a
doesn't make any
Muslim. She
difference.
doesn't
She
believe
should
what
have
you
thought of that
believe.
before
You
she
don't
had this
believe in
competition.
liberty and freedom
You know,
and
you
freedom
need
of
to learn the
speech. You want to
lessons
oppress her over
Theo
a
Van Gogh
cartoon.
and Salman Rushdie and Hirsi Ali. You cannot continue to go down this road and expect the Muslims to stand back. You know, I would retaliate if someone insulted my own mother, let alone the Prophet, who I adhere and, you know, I love 100 times more
if
than my own
anybody
family.
says anything
Come on,
against
your
your
Pope
prophet
said
that
he
you
would
don't
attack someone
like-
if someone attacked his
So
mother.
if you don't,
What about the Prophet?
if somebody says something about your prophet that you don't like, you want them dead.
Any prophet.
Your
You know, if they
prophet.
said that about Jesus or Moses or Abraham or the Prophet
Well,
Muhammad sallallahu
I didn't
alaihi
hear
wasallam,
anybody.
it's the same
Wait
difference.
a minute,
It
because there
carries
was a
capital punishment.
crucifix submerged in urine, and I didn't hear you or any other Muslim say that this person ought to get the death penalty. Andre Serrano. There was an elephant dung thrown on a picture of the
You know-
Virgin Mary. I
you know,
didn't hear
Sean,
you or any other Muslim
Let me tell you
condemn
something.
that or threaten death there.
In this country, they depicted Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, as a homosexual. That was called Corpus Christi.
And
at
you
the
support the
Holloway,
death of them
if you
too.
like, Road Theatre, the Pleasance Theatre, and we had a demonstration. And Christians were coming to us and saying that we should have been out there. So we always raise our voice no matter which prophet of Allah, you know, has been attacked. And what I would say to you and the American people is, instead of insulting the prophets, why don't you follow them? Why don't you abide by what they say? It's a
Because
completely
they don't
absurd.
agree with
You're attacking the very people
we don't
who we
live
should
in
take
your.
guidance
We don't
from.
live under your oppressive Sharia law.
Here's the key
You
and
will do
critical.
one day,
Here,
Sean. The
excuse me,
Sharia is
sir.
coming to
God
America,
forbid.
as you well know.
Here's the key and critical difference. Canon law pertains to Catholics. Jewish law pertains only to Jews. But the Sharia,
Yeah.
which dictates every basic aspect of human life, asserts its
That's
authority
absolutely correct.
over
And it applies to everyone.
non-Muslims.
The Jews and
Asserts
Christians can live under the
its
Sharia as
authority
they do for
over...
800 years
Yeah,
in the hearts of
this is
Europe.
silly. This is
Why
silly.
can't you live there?
This is silly.
Let one at a time.
The Sharia
Yes,
asserts...
ma'am.
The Sharia asserts its authority over non-Muslims, unlike Jewish law and unlike canon law, which is why under the Sharia they're slaughtering the Christians, they're slaughtering secular Muslims across Africa and across the Muslim world. The fact is, in that fatwa that was issued against me, my name is preceded by Khanzir. Now, Khanzir means pig. It's the word Muhammad used before he slaughtered, beheaded hundreds of Jews. So to first say to the liberal media that this is not religious is absurd and obscene on its face. To blame me and say that my cartoons are controversial, excuse me, murdering cartoonists is controversial. And it is the jihadis that made this a flashpoint, not me. And does anyone really think that these jihadis would have just been peaceful, loving Americans?
Okay, can I come back to that?
Of course they wouldn't. I submit to you that our conference saved...
Pamela...
no, I'm talking, sir. I know you're used to stepping over women, but you're not going to have it here, okay? My conference saved lives because I understand the threat, and we had enormous protection, and the Garland police were superb. But those jihadists drove 1,000 miles for this conference. Would they have hit a mall? Would they have hit a coffee shop like in Australia?
Or kids?
Or that conference saved lives. And shame on the cowardly media.
Let's go back to the Imam.
Okay. Let me read you something that Rich Lowry put out about this. Drawing contest, a stake in contested ground. This is a real good opinion on this event. How dare Pamela Geller get targeted by terrorists bent on committing mass murder? That's been the reaction of a portion of the opinion elite. What I say about them earlier in the first hour? Who controls the media in this country? Okay? That's been the reaction of a portion of the opinion elite to news that Geller's Draw Mohammed contest in Garland, Texas was unsuccessfully assaulted by two heavily armed Muslim men in an attack ISIS took responsibility for. The Washington Post ran an article on Geller headlined, "Event Organizer Offers No Apology After Thwarted Attack in Texas." What did she have to apologize for? News that the Post has yet to break. Malala Yousafzai refuses to admit fault for seeking an education. Quote, unquote. Quote, Coptic Christians won't concede error for worshiping wrong God, unquote. Unrepentant Shiites continue to disagree with Sunnis, unquote. Yes, these are more sympathetic cases, but it's no more legitimate to shoot someone for drawing Mohammed than it is to shoot a girl for going to school or a Coptic or a Shia for his or her faith. Expecting apologies from these victims would be almost as perverse as expecting one from Pamela Geller. Yeah, the Coptic Christians that were beheaded on the Libyan beach, they needed to apologize to their murderers because what? They made them get blood on their hands? I mean, where is the brains of this controlled media? Okay?
Can you say that on the air?
Yeah, I can. Respectable opinion cannot bear the idea that she's become a symbol of free speech, which once upon a time, and still is when convenient, one of the highest values of the media and the left. If Geller was a groundbreaking pornographer like the loathsome Larry Flint, someone would already be planning a celebratory biopic of her life. If she were a gadfly sticking it to some major Western religion rather than to Islam, she might be considered more socially acceptable. Linda Stasi, ooh, she's got a very appropriate last name, Stasi. Secret State Police in German. That's the acronym Stasi. Wrote a column for the New York Daily News entitled, quote, "With Pamela Geller's prophet Mohammed cartoon stunt in Texas, hate rears its ugly face again," unquote. The hatred referred to wasn't that of the attackers, but of Geller. In perhaps the most obtuse and least grammatical statement committed to print in the aftermath of Garland, Stasi argued that, quote, "Geller, like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, revel in hate," unquote. What? This is like saying that the Finns and the Red Army both reveled in shooting guns during the Winter War without taking into account of who invaded and occupied whom. Geller holds events and writes blog posts deemed offensive by many, all of which are fully protected by our laws. ISIS beheads people and blows them up, all of which is criminal by any civilized standard. Quote, "While we have freedom of speech," unquote, Stasi continued, quote, "we also have freedom of religion, which should not be impinged upon," unquote. Huh? This is a truism and a non sequitur. Tasteless speech does not impinge upon anyone's freedom of religion. To understand this, folks, Pamela Geller didn't say advocate the burning of all mosques here in the States or the closing of the mosques even by the authorities. That's impinging on freedom of religion. That's not what she did. So this Stasi individual, again, appropriately named for the secret state police of East Germany, apparently. Oh well. Scurrilous and even hateful speech and cartoons, sometimes involving religion, have been featured in Anglo-American history going back centuries. They're an inevitable part of a free society. In this context, a drawing of Mohammed is mild. The only reason it seems different is that some Muslim radicals are willing to kill over it, which is exactly why Pamela Geller's event was not purposeless. The event was placing a stake in contested ground in a way it wouldn't have if it had offended Quakers or Roman Catholics, who do not massacre people who insult them. It was a statement of defiance, of an unwillingness to abide by the rules of fanatics. Fanatics, people, understand that. Mm-hmm. Quote, "I feel that sometimes Muslims in America have become the last group in which public officials, organizations, and others are allowed to public demean," unquote, NBC reporter Ayman Mohyeldin opined the other day. What country does he live in? The so-called new atheists merrily deride Christianity with no worries for their health or safety. Meanwhile, cartoonists who draw Mohammed have to go into hiding? For better or worse, we live in a society in which nothing is sacred. If we're to accept the assassin's veto, the only exception for now will be depictions of Mohammed, which would be perverse. A free society cannot let the parameters of its speech be set by murderous extremists, fanatics, thugs. Give her this. Pamela Geller understands that, whereas her scolds don't. Some of them can even tell the difference. Some of them cannot even tell the difference between her and her would-be killers. And boy, is that ever appropriate.
Gee. I mean,
And this is not over. This is not, this is, the whole thing is
but
moving.
The whole thing is, this falls in line with other issues that are going on.
Yeah, oh yeah, it definitely
You know,
does.
you look at Baltimore and Ferguson, and then you look at what's happened outside of there. When it's the opposite thing happens, you don't hear anything
Yeah.
out of.
Well, again, this society is now rift, that means overflowing with this political correctness. And only certain groups are politically correct. And it happens that the organization du jour for the left-wing political correctness crowd is the Muslims right now.
They're being protected better than some
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
entities.
Why? You got to ask yourself why. Well, I'll tell you why.
Look at the White
Because
House.
they are counter to the people that these leftist political correctness types want to attack. They have adopted the Muslim / Chinese idea, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And they are the enemies of us. They are the enemies of Christians. Not Caucasian Christians, all Christians, folks. Negro, Caucasian, Mongol Christians are at risk from these people. So the bottom line is that this is being used to further the chaos that the Illuminati want to foist upon this country.
None of this happens by accident.
No, this is not happening by accident at all.
It's not coincidence.
No, coincidence burns.
That don't
I smell it burning.
exist. I'm sorry.
No, it's very interesting times we live in, and you always should remember that ancient Chinese curse, may your enemies live in interesting times.
Yep.
Well, these are the interesting times, folks.
I mean, today is an example of what happened today, of hard work and persistence.
But this is when Christians do what Christians are supposed to do.
Exactly.
They come together, they work for the good battle. They work for the good cause, the good crusade.
You're right, because when I look at the overall picture and I hear these ladies talk and I see their posts and stuff, they are religious people.
Yeah.
Most of their stuff is done in faith, in faith in God.
You saw it, yeah. We saw that every time we saw one of them,
Yeah.
or some of them at the meetings, yeah.
You know, and I mean, that's,
It's like that, the rabbi in the first hour.
yeah,
If the country does not, parts of the country have never given up on Jehovah. They have never demanded that he leave their society. Those parts of society are going to be assisted in their tribulations, as is happening now. So, folks, if you don't get on our bandwagon, well, peace be with you, and do not call yourself my countryman,
well,
because there's only one bandwagon that's gonna go anywhere, and that's the Christian one.
I believe it.
Bottom line, that rabbi you saw, he's the rabbi of the largest Messianic Jewish community in the world, and they're headquartered in Long Island. If you notice, he wrote the book The Harbinger and the Shemitah, the year of the Shemitah, which is this year. And I've talked about those books before, and you basically saw there what those books are about. The
Yeah.
country needs to return to Jehovah's kind mercies, or else. That's bottom line.
I actually have the audio of the Harbinger. As much traveling as I do, I throw
Yeah.
one of them in there.
Well, the Shemitah is a little more complicated
Yeah.
than the Harbinger. I wouldn't recommend that you do the same thing with it, because you'll be concentrating on that and not paying attention to what you're doing. Because he gets into very
Why
great
does that guy have
detail.
his blue lights on?
Yeah, exactly. You'll find it very interesting, though, and hurry up and read it, folks. You ain't got much time, because we're in the time now. I am convinced of that. It may not, we're not talking about the revelations, the biblical revelations events. That's not what we're talking about. This is a lesser scale event, which may ultimately lead to, but we don't know that it will lead to Jesus coming back. That's not for us to know. We just have to basically be ready, but in the meantime, trouble's going to happen. And you ain't going to be raptured up. I don't care what any of these preachers say, you ain't getting raptured up. Jesus only comes back one more time. He doesn't come back halfway in the clouds, okay? So, if anybody wants me to do another discussion on that, I will. The last time I did one a few years back, we had plenty of discussion, and all in the direction that it should have gone. That the rapture myth has been sold to a lot of good people, a lot of good Christians, to persuade them that they do not need to be ready for trouble. Remember, folks, it's insurance. If you prepare for the worst and pray for the best, then you'll be a whole lot better off. And you do all you can to get ready yourself. And again, this is the works that you need to be doing. Faith without works is dead. And those that believe in the rapture, that they can just sit and pray hard and nothing's going to happen, you have no works to back up your faith, period. If you had true faith, you would know. And besides, let's say for a minute there, it is going to happen. Then what is going on now to Christians all over the world? And it's not just the Mohammedans that are martyring Christians all over the world. It is the Chinese. It is pseudo-Christians, that people that call themselves Christians but are killing Christians that do not agree with them in the name of Jesus, which our enemies like to use that, like Obama likes to use that as a stick over our heads, that, oh, you see, these Christians are not good people because they go out and kill other Christians.
Today,
Just because somebody calls themselves a Christian, these people, they're Christian because they call themselves Christian? No, no.
he made a comment today that Christians need to quit focusing on abortion and something else and focus on this. You know, I mean, really.
He's a lost cause, but he recently told Planned Parenthood that they had a president, and at the close of his statement, he actually said, "God bless."
Yeah,
well,
right.
as I told somebody when I read that this evening, what God was he talking about? Because Jehovah is not blessing Planned Parenthood because of their killing of babies and other things that they're doing, but primarily because of their sacrifice of the innocents.
They kill more of their ethnic background than they do ours.
Yeah. Oh, but we're racist. No, there's more Negroes being killed in abortions than there are
I'm gonna wear a t-shirt.
Caucasians.
I'm a racist. How do you like that?
Yeah. We must be racist because we don't want these
Bullseye.
Negro babies killed. Go figure. You figured that out yet? Oh, well.
I mean, actually, Louisiana can be proud.
Oh, yeah, that's why we haven't dwelled on that subject, because this state is
Number one in the country.
yeah, number one in pro-life
In pro-life.
in the country.
Number one in the country.
And it
I
could be,
did a pro-life walk last January.
I did.
I gotta work out before I do that again.
I did one a while back, but there's been stuff going on ever since. They do that, unfortunately, they do this stuff on weekends.
January.
And there's always stuff on weekends.
And in
going on.
January.
Yeah, well, that's not the problem, it's just there's always something going on. It's like this month, I got something every Saturday, but the last Saturday of the month. I had something every Saturday this month. Anyway, Jade Helm, real quickly. I told you I was going to say something about that. Okay. There's been a lot of hype, and of course I'll get into a little more detail on that tomorrow night. But the bottom line, once again, is, folks, very little has come out that we can hang our hats on, that we can say is definite. We have sources beyond the internet, and those sources are saying that the people inside, the people that are participating in the training or will be participating, by the way, it has already started.
The training?
Yeah, there was a parachute jump. I believe he said it was in Tennessee by those British troops that were at Fort Bragg, those British paras. That was in connection with the Jade Helm. It's already begun.
Yeah, I gotta go up to Leesville next month.
There won't be anything going on there to speak of. You probably won't see anything. Fort Polk is not tasked with much of that, apparently, so far. This is the big interesting thing.
Think I can ride along the fence?
Well, yeah, probably, but see, they're all on lockdown. All of the bases
That's
are on
right.
lockdown, connected
No, I won't go ride
to
by the
ISIS,
fence.
not allegedly not Jade Helm. But
I don't think I'll go by the fence if
no,
they're on lockdown.
not a good idea. The thing is that even the people that will be participating in the exercise are confused. They do not know for sure what they're going to be doing, because this has changed up almost on a weekly basis since this thing started, apparently. There's been a lot of confusion because there's been a lot of changes made to what they're supposed to be doing. So tentatively right now, most of the actual insertions will not be done by convoys, by ground transporters. They're all coming in by air. Both helicopter insertions, parachute insertions, like they just did with the Brits. I believe he said it was in Tennessee. But that's only half of the contingent of Brits. You only heard about half of them. The ones that landed at Fort Bragg was only half. There were 2,000, 1,000 of them went to Fort Polk and were there. We don't know if they're still there, doing some kind of workup training probably. Additionally, there are UN vehicles that are tasked to be involved in the exercise, so that's going to get some people upset out of Arizona.
Yep.
They've been spotted out there, and our guy had to find out what they were doing out there, and he found out they are going to be part of the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But not necessarily everywhere, just in Arizona, perhaps. Again, it's all up in the air. The Walmart has been pretty well confirmed that Walmart's involved in it in some capacity, because military vehicles have even got pictures I've been sent taken out of the side of somebody's car window of Humvees being unloaded at the Walmart. I think it was in Livingston, Texas, in the parking lot there. And our source said that the back parking lot was full of them. So they are using the Walmarts for something. And let's see, the rest of these rumors that you're hearing and some of the stuff on the internet of pictures of UN vehicles, the ones I've seen are old stuff. Those were taken, some of them in Bosnia or in that area, you can tell from the terrain and the buildings, and the fact that the vehicles are not used over here. They were foreign, they were French, I think.
Really?
And some of the other pictures were not of recent issue. I saw those pictures over a year ago on something else somebody was claiming was a UN operation. So somebody is rehashing, they're recycling these photographs, kind of like what the controlled, codependent corporate media does. I saw them one time show a picture of a burning Israeli Centurion tank, and they claimed it was a Syrian T-54. Well, anybody that knows armor is going to know the difference between a Centurion and a T-54. There's no doubt. They also showed pictures of starving Ethiopians and claimed that they were in Somalia about the time of the Black Hawk Down situation. And it turned out that those were pictures of Ethiopians, not Somalians, from a situation several years before that. So don't trust the pictures you see on the internet unless you know the source. Or you can identify, like in one of the pictures I've got of the Hummers being trucked in, there's a Walmart sign in the picture. Okay, that helps to confirm. But when they've got an obvious Bosnian house in the picture, it's it kind of blows it right there.
Well,
People have a tendency, folks, if you put stuff, there's other things that really rile me about the internet with your Facebook and your other electronic media thingy you're doing back and forth, your, what do you call it, social media. Identify what you're showing. They will put something on there. Somebody will tell me, did you see this, and show it to me. Well, where is that? It doesn't say in the picture where it is, the date it was taken, etc. Put that on your picture. I know you can do it, so do it. If you want to be credible with anything you post on the internet, now I'm not recommending you post your breakfast tomorrow morning on your whatever thingy people do have a tendency to post on there. That's so lame. I hope y'all get plenty of those back. But anyway, I'll have some more on Jade Helm for you tomorrow night with a kind of a synopsis of what we do know and what we don't know. Plus updates that I get tomorrow, which are liable to be quite interesting. Again, though, it's confusing.
well, I mean, it's not like a painted picture.
No. And even the guys involved, like I said, they're confused.
But there is pushback.
Oh, yeah. Colorado's governor said no. The governor of Texas sent a letter out to the Texas State Guard telling them that they're going to be mobilized to watch what's going on.
And Rick Perry didn't like that.
And Rick Perry didn't like that, the former governor. Well, Rick Perry is a Bilderberger, so we can expect him not to like a lot of things that happen. Anyway,
You just have to sit back long enough to find out who is and who isn't.
well, yeah, that's what I'm telling folks is we're not going to know what happens until it happens.
I mean, all you have to do, we talk all the time about this. What thing is gonna happen today? What exciting thing is gonna happen today?
Yeah, it's never a dull moment, is there?
No. Wait long enough, may not happen at 8 o'clock in the morning, but by 4 o'clock, there'll be something.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at
Yep.
the train.
Well, they blew that out of proportion.
Well, and the other thing is I'll bet that when we went home and we turned on Fox, what do you think's gonna be on Fox?
The train.
The train. If you go to CNN, what do you think's gonna be on?
Yeah.
The train.
Yeah.
We already know everything about the train. When you find out something concrete,
Something new.
Tell me.
Yeah, but then we don't need to hear it 10 times in an
no,
hour.
but then you will. They'll go over and over. I always thought when they had those debates with the politicians, and then they spent 30 minutes afterwards discussing the debate.
I know.
Excuse me?
I know.
That's a good one.
All right.
Wealth distribution.
Americans doubt wealth redistribution.
Here, I'll help you out.
He's going to redistribute some wealth from him to him over there.
Then I'll be broke and go on welfare.
This is from Michael Barron from Friday. He makes some real good points about wealth redistribution in this country and the fact that in the 18th and 19th century, skeptics about democracy argued that enfranchised masses would use their votes to seize the property of the relatively few rich. What could be more natural? Well, his argument is good to a point, but understand that the so-called democracy of the 18th and 19th centuries, particularly this one, were not a democracy. We were never a pure democracy. The closest we've come is now to being a pure democracy. Now you have people want to redistribute wealth from the lowest, or from the highest paid people to the lowest paid people, right and left, much more so than ever in the past. So this is a new phenomenon, relatively speaking. Because democracy back then was not the democracy that Obama and Hillary Clinton want to have. There were limits on what could be done, and those limits are called constitutional, and it transforms the so-called democracy into a republic, where there's things that, again, the majority cannot do. The majority cannot vote themselves in a true republic. Constitutional republic cannot vote themselves access to all of the rich people's money, which is what some people like Hillary would have you do.
She's broke.
But she's broke, yeah. The bill only makes, what, $500,000 a whack. It is speechifying, which he probably has to take make a discount now because he's getting bad. I think he's getting senile. If you've seen him lately, but.
Yep.
Now, he goes into some other details, but there's some interesting points here that he wants to make. Consider some redistributive policies often advocated, increasing the minimum wage and expanding the earned income tax credit. The latter, supported by some Republicans, would redistribute income a little. Rewriting labor laws to show more favor to private sector unions is a political non-starter and likely won't restore unions anywhere near their 1950s peak. And there's a push now for unions. They're even using the union card to explain why Walmart shut down 4 of their big stores for 6 months for plumbing work. They're now claiming that that was because of union disruption, so the company decided they were going to take it out on the employees, so they shut it down. Well, that's a crock. That's BS.
They leaked it out.
Yeah, they leaked it. But see, the problem with that, of course, is that the unions were more powerful elsewhere in the country. And like Livingston, Texas has 2 Walmarts and only one of them was closed. Well, duh. So, but the redistributive policies are showing themselves to be less and less effective and less popular, is what he's getting at. The British Labour Party lost because of that. Now, they had not lost the election yet when he wrote this. He says that the Labour Party leader is calling for higher taxes on high earners and mansions and might enact them after the May 7th election. Well, no, he won't, because he got defeated soundly. This was the worst defeat by the Labour Party ever in British history, apparently. Ever.
Wow.
Okay? So, and of course, we already have a redistributionist income tax, but here's the key. The top 20% of earners in this country pay 84% of the income tax.
Mm-hmm.
And the top 1% with 17% of income pay 46% of the income tax. Now, is that personal? They don't bother to say whether that's personal income tax and corporate income tax in there. It's probably just personal.
Yeah, but if you're George Soros, you don't pay.
No. Certain people like Soros and Sharpton do not pay, but they have buddies in the White House, or have a buddy in the White House.
But I paid my taxes.
Now, Americans have an innate sense that it's a mistake to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. They seem to understand that if taxes are too high, the affluent will figure out ways to shelter income. In other words, they doubt that a government incapable of building a working website can effectively redistribute income and wealth. Well,
By the way, the company that built that website just opened up for business right down the street.
oh, that's right. They're here in Lafayette.
CGI is
Yep.
here.
Yep. So,
Due to our wonderful,
Governor?
no. Well, the governor might have had something, but I heard Joey Durrell
Yeah.
had a lot
And
to do.
his minion that wants his job,
Yeah.
what's his name?
D.
D. Stanley, who wants Joey Durrell's job.
D. Stanley.
Anyway, now what this is getting to is the leftists like to talk about the distribution of wealth in this country. there's a couple of things you need to be aware of and keep in mind whenever these left-wingers are talking about this. And a lot of Republicans are jumping on the bandwagon because they want to be populists, you see. And they say that, well, the corporate elites are making too much money. First of all, that's not real money, not even fake Federal Reserve notes, okay? This is an account. They're getting stock options, which, hey, if the stock market crashes and the company's stock goes to nothing, they have nothing, okay? They're getting basically similar types of compensation. So it's not necessarily real money, but it's portrayed as if they're getting all of that in dollars. Oh, we got this CEO so-and-so. Yeah, they may be making too much money. That's immaterial to this argument, though, whether they are or not. Because if he's the best CEO in the world and he demands $1 billion package
Bonus.
to go to work for CGI, and they're willing to pay it, then, hey, what's kind of bizarre is that a guy that gets fired after 6 months because he doesn't do what he's supposed to do still gets the bonus, still gets the big paycheck.
Yeah.
Or not a paycheck, actually, but the big package, which is not just cash. or
And you don't
check.
pay taxes if you work for the IRS.
Well, that's true.
1,600,
1,600 of them that
and they got
Oh.
their bonuses.
yeah, they got bonuses in fact, in spite of the fact that they owed money to the IRS.
They didn't
Well-
even file their taxes.
No. But let's look beyond that. When they're talking about this wealth,
Oh,
okay, this wealth is not anything that you can hang your hat on. It's not wealth that, it's not a microphone or a ballpoint pen or a coffee mug or even an AK. It's not even on paper. It's in here, okay? This wealth that they want to redistribute is in here. When the big crash happened 7 years ago to the month from the one that's fixing to happen this year in September to the month.
they're talking more and more about
Yeah.
that.
The money that was lost was, again, on paper. It was these stocks and these other things, derivatives and all of this other weird financial thing that they do. It wasn't real. It wasn't even cash in the bank. It wasn't even cash that somebody had gotten a bank draft on a computer out of. It was things like stock value, real estate value. If the guy had a $1 billion investment in a big building, let's say you bought a building for $1 billion, and the value of that building went up. The first 5 years you got it, it went up considerably. So now it was worth $3 billion 7 years ago when the crash happened, okay? So now you got a $3 billion building that's on the books for this year as wealth. Now, the crash happens and the real estate values go down, along with stock and everything else, okay? Now the building's no longer worth $3 billion, but you only paid it $1 billion, but it's now worth $2 billion. Oh, I lost $1 billion this year in that crash. No, you didn't. You did not lose $1 billion. Somebody didn't come and raid your bank account and pull $1 billion worth out of cash.
Exactly.
Out of your bank account. Okay? The esoteric value of that building, the official value of that building went down. Well, the same thing happens with the wealth of people in the country. What has happened in this country is that there is not a set amount of wealth. There's not a $100 billion worth of wealth in this country. Here it is. And the poor people get this little slice of it, and the rich people get all the rest. Now, what happens is the pie gets bigger and everybody gets more of it. So when they start with these percentages, even the percentages that Barron puts out here, okay, it's not really that meaningful except when you put it in these terms that he did here about the percentage of income tax that a certain percentage of top earners pay. That's what counts for purposes of illustration. In reality, it doesn't matter. Because again, a lot of this is stuff that they made. Let's see, that $1 billion building. You paid $1 billion, you lost $1 billion on it. You didn't do anything with it, you didn't sell it, but it comes back up and it's now worth $2.5 billion. You lost $1 billion of it 7 years ago, but you made another $500 million back. And then you decide to sell it. What do you pay tax on? You're not going to pay tax on what it was worth 7 years ago, $2 billion, right? You're going to pay tax on what you sell it for now.
Exactly.
Okay? So it has increased in value by $1.5 billion. You're going to pay capital gains tax on that $1.5 billion. Well, excuse me, but it's the same building, but it's worth that much more in today's dollars over 7 years ago. So the pie's gotten bigger. Yeah, you're now worth that much more, but so what? Everybody's gotten raises, etc. What was interesting was recently I saw an interview with Soros, and he said he advocated, I think it was a 1% per year at least increase in inflation, because at that rate, then the average income of everybody in the country would go up so many thousands of dollars over a 10 or 20 year period. Okay, and it was substantial, $10,000, $15,000 if inflation goes up 1% a year. Well, you can't, he was advocating that inflation go up that much. Well, remember what inflation's based on. It's not based on food or fuel. See, that's where you look at the poverty level. That's what's important about the poverty, is that the poorer that people are, the less money they have to spend, the bigger percentage of that money has to go to what? Food first, then fuel. If they're to get around in this society, you've got to have a way to get around. And whether it's paying extra for your bus ticket or your taxi ride, whatever, you're going to be paying more for fuel. But that doesn't take into account in inflation. The government does not use food and fuel when figuring in inflation. So all this talk about the percentage of wealth in this country is bogus, the way most people phrase it, the way that it's explained. They don't want you to understand that the pie gets bigger. Yeah, the bottom 10% might get a smaller percentage of the pie, but so what? If that percentage is 3 times in value greater than last time, then they're better off, aren't they? That's the key. That's the key there. But, hey,
I mean,
Hillary and the rest of the left-wingers, and many of the so-called right-wingers are using this
constantly.
this stuff to beat us over the head with it.
I mean, the other thing that goes with that is the minimum wage thing.
Minimum wage is socialist, period. There should be no minimum wage at all.
Well,
People are worth how much they're being paid. That's what they're worth.
but I saw a good example. The guy was all excited. His minimum wage went to $11 an hour. And he was all excited about that. No, he didn't lose his job. They cut his hours in half.
Yeah, yeah.
So what did he gain?
He was making,
And there's several places in Washington State where they went to the $15 an hour. They shut down.
yeah.
They had to shut down. I mean, you're going from $7, $8 an hour and doubling it almost to 15, the overhead, and you can only put so much on the customer, and depending on what your business is.
Yeah. That, a lot of people, yeah.
If minimum wage laws work, then why don't they make the minimum wage $100 an hour?
Yeah, exactly. Why isn't the minimum wage $100 an hour then if they work?
I'll work.
If minimum wage laws worked, if they were successful in bettering the economy, making the economy better, which is the only way that people are going to get better off, is if the economy in general gets better, well then, again, it's arbitrary. It's totally arbitrary. Oh no, it's based on the cost of living. No, it's not. Even the cost of living index is not based on reality. Again, what did I say? It's based on inflation rate, official inflation rate, which doesn't take into account food and fuel.
Those jobs were never meant to support a family.
No, this is what I've told y'all before too, about, it's like what happened when the 9/11/01 thing started and all the military crap that happened. All these military families are suddenly on welfare. They had, and here's why. They took anybody and everybody up to about 45 years old, if they could pass the physical, then they were enlisted in the military in one branch or the other. They upped the maximum age. Now, you get a 45-year-old, or let's not even go there, let's say a 35-year-old. You get a 35-year-old that joins the Army. He's going to get initial recruit pay. Just because he's 35 years old and has a degree, unless he goes through OCS or ROTC, OCS if he enlists, it's going to be private wages. He's going to get the wages of a buck private. Okay? He's got no experience in the military, and the pay is based on how long they've been in service. Time in service, not just rank. So they decide because he's got a special job that they can give him extra rank, but he's still only got the limited time that he's been in the military. He's got a family. See, the military wages were never designed to handle a family. They were for a recruit, then a buck private, then a private, then a corporal, on up the ladder. But that's why so many military families had to go on welfare, because they were living in government housing. They had a government food allowance, okay, but it wasn't enough. 3 children, it's not based on, I don't think it's based, the food allowance is not based on the number of children that somebody has. They don't take that into account for a private or a corporal or a sergeant. They ain't supposed to have any children, not even supposed to be married until they get to a certain level. So, the same thing with minimum wage. That was designed for a high school,
Really?
high school or college,
part-time?
to give them spending money. It certainly was not designed to pay their tuition, et cetera, because tuition was not what it is today.
Tell me how many times you've walked into a McDonald's or Burger King, and what does the sign say? Accepting applications.
Yeah.
You can't get people to work the jobs, but they'd rather be, and so I researched that. You know why that is? They're better off being on welfare than they are working
Yeah.
at Burger King.
Yeah.
Something wrong with that picture.
Yep. But then again, that's
We created
well, that's what a socialist state is.
yeah.
And now you've got the welfare plantation, and that includes unemployment, that includes the unions. If you're making more money just because you're in a union than you would in the same profession doing the same work outside the union, then you're in a welfare state. You're in part of the welfare plantation. The unions are private welfare organizations. They can be considered NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
But the unions were formed in the early 30s for one reason, that was to protect the worker, who they would work 60 hours or 80 hours a week.
Go ahead and grab that.
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Tom, this is Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
Talking about wages.
Yeah.
You know, these people want these outlandish wages, and there's a business nearby which pays turbine mechanics. You know, that's those thingamajigs, that same thing that pushes airplanes across the sky.
Mm-hmm.
This turbine mechanic makes $15 an hour. He can do flip hamburgers and sheets, but I promise you, these hamburger flippers can't do his job, which is balancing and timing these instruments, these delicate turbines.
Yeah.
And yet they want that money?
Yeah,
I know.
We got about 30 seconds, Jerry.
That's it, thanks.
Okay.
All right,
thanks.
thank you.
You're right, you're correct. They want the same money, and of course, these $15 minimum wage, do you know a guy in the military, in combat,
He doesn't
gets a
make
lot
that.
less than that?
Yeah,
And he's not making it on the hourly basis, he's making a straight salary.
that's